Aloha, my beautiful friends. It's Wendy Hutchinson. And today I'm talking about transitions. And the world is going through transition, massive transitions. I've been talking about it a lot in prior newsletters and also videos on YouTube and things like that. But I wanted to specifically talk about our personal transitions. And I'm talking about really things that are happening in our lives that are feeling really uncomfortable. And whenever we're kind of closing a chapter and then opening a new chapter, there's this there's this gap in between. And in this transitional space, the old thing is crumbling, but you haven't yet created the new thing. You haven't created alignment with what's coming for you. You don't know necessarily what's coming for you. And it's so uncomfortable, right? Because we're having to let go of something that has been very comfortable, even in the discordance, even in the friction, even in the struggle. There's a comfort in the discomfort. And so we find ourselves holding on to things, ideas, aspects of ourselves, people in our lives who are no longer supporting us or good for us. But we find ourselves wanting to hold on to it because it's comfortable and it's known. And we're reaching a place in our soul development and on the planet energetically where it's just going to be impossible to tangibly hold on to things that aren't supporting you, aligned with you, and moving you forward, right? Moving you and returning you back to your alignment with yourself and your soul and your purpose here. So many of you I know are going through either the realization that something's not working, but you're not quite ready to distance yourself or end something because it's just too much to bear emotionally, or you're in it, you're in the thick of it, and it's chaotic and it's emotional, and it's like this kind of bomb went off and everything's imploding. You know, you might be losing your home, or you might be having disputes with your immediate family members, or you might, things might be bubbling to the surface, and that's a good thing. It can feel terrible. It can feel like, what in the world? What's happening? Because we're so programmed and conditioned to think that anything that's uncomfortable is bad. But that's not the case. Whenever we're in something uncomfortable, it's good because it's a signpost, it's a guidepost telling us, a marker telling us you're at a crossroads and it's time to level up. It's time to choose something more in alignment with you. It's time to create space and invite in something that's more supportive of your journey going forward. And often that requires shedding and releasing. That requires you making choices that are moving you in the direction you're meant to go at this very time. The problem is, it's terrifying for so many people because we don't know the unfolding. We don't know what's coming. We don't know if we're going to be okay emotionally because maybe you've been in a relationship and identified with this person, this job title, this income status, this friend circle, whatever, this spiritual group, whatever it is that you've been a part of and attached to, becomes part of your identity. So to let it go is almost like carving away that part of yourself, that aspect of yourself that kind of thrived in that environment. But here's the thing, we're constantly changing, we're constantly growing. We're here for the evolutionary process, the growth process, the ascension process, whatever you want to call it. We're all here for that. And that requires us to change. It requires us to let go and level up and let go and level up and let go and level up. And even though you may be trying very hard to hold on to something, the universe, your higher selves, your soul is going to push you or orchestrate events to force you to let things go. So, what I want to talk about is this transition space between letting something go and not yet knowing what's coming, and how to really deal with the discomfort of the transition, because you're in transition. And for many of you, I feel like it's not just saying goodbye to a relationship, it's saying goodbye to the aspect of yourself that was firmly rooted in that relationship or in that ego identity with that job or in that group, social group, whatever your attachment was, right? There's this ego aspect of ourselves that kind of fed on that. And good or bad, we were comfortable there. So, my first suggestion as you're going through the kind of destruction phase or decomposition of whatever it is that needs to come apart is to really acknowledge what is happening. Because people have a real tendency to look away, like, I don't want to deal with that, I don't want to feel that. And there's this incredible mastery in avoiding the feelings that come up with change. And incredible stories that are created like, no, I can make this work, or if only this person would change, this would work. If only this person would be the person I want them to be, right? That's our ego wanting to control someone else and have them fit in our box to make us comfortable. And that's not healthy. That is not a healthy relationship. When you are clinging to that if only narrative, you're really delaying your suffering, because that person is not going to change, or that environment is not going to magically change. That in-law situation isn't magically going to fix itself. It's just, it is what it is. So the first piece of advice I'm going to give you is to be honest with what's happening. Be honest with yourself. Stop pretending that if only this, it's going to work. I know people who have said if only for decades, and they're in the same horrible relationship. They've lost decades of their lives trying to learn this lesson. If they could have cut and run 10 years ago, 20 years ago, they could have had this incredible life, but they're hanging on. The key is to acknowledge the truth and let it go. Let go. Pry your fingers off of that and get curious as to why you're holding on to something that doesn't serve you. That's a really good question, right? The second thing is, there's a lot of faith that's required as we go through these transitional spaces, because we have to believe that we are being supported and guided into a higher, more expansive, more aligned experience or relationship or situation without any evidence that it's happening. And while we are choosing to align with that higher version of our lives or ourselves, we're going through a huge implosion, right? Or decomposition of something that meant something to us. And it's so there's like this real combination of fear, of grief, of anger, because if only, right? If only they could have done what I wanted them to do. So it's this real soup of emotion that we're navigating. And the first thing, as I said, is to just be really honest about where you stand and what is happening. Take the blinders off and have the courage to really, really dial in and be honest with yourself. Like, what is this about? Why am I here? What am I feeling? and why? Am I being supported in this? Am I growing from this? If I'm growing, what's my lesson? What's my takeaway? Because that's the point. That's the point of the experience. And it's really hard to be in a space of faith and love and higher perspective and consciousness when you're going through any perceived or real suffering emotionally. It just feels, it feels so big. It feels so big. When you get on the other side of it, you're going to acknowledge it as being something really powerful that happened for you, but hopefully you'll have healed a little bit and have less of the triggers and less emotional hooks around the thing that you're letting go. So I'm just going to provide a few suggestions when you're going through this transition. Certainly be present to your emotions. Certainly be honest about what's happening and accept it. I think so much suffering comes when we can't accept the reality that's being presented to us. So make peace with what's happening and accept it and allow yourself to move on because you're being guided this direction for a reason. And it's really to bring you more into energetic alignment with things that are going to support your journey and support you. And the next thing is I'm going to talk about is faith. There is always a cosmic order to everything. And I find as we ascend and our consciousness expands, our view is broader. We're able to see the bigger picture, right? So if you're at the base of the mountain and you're viewing your landscape, you're going to have a very limited perspective. You're going to see trees right in front of you. You're going to see the base of the mountain in front of you. It's going to feel very finite and tight because you're just looking and surveying the base, the bottom, and it's a very small area that you can view and make decisions based on, right? You're confined in a very narrow area. As you go up that mountain and as you travel your path and let go of things and invite new things in and become more masterful at navigating those transitions and those emotions and those deep feelings, you're going to notice that your vista or your view becomes more expanded. You're going to be able to see maybe, oh, if that guy when I was 20 I didn't break up with, I would have had a much different life, right? Or if I hadn't let go of this business that has been driving me insane and just draining me financially, if I hadn't had the courage to let go, maybe I would have had to file bankruptcy or I would have had a nervous breakdown or all of the above, right? So it's really important to know that as you go higher and pry your little fingers off the things that you're holding so tightly to honor yourself and become aligned, you're going to notice that your perspective broadens and then it becomes a little easier to bear, but you have to have the courage to do it and let go. And you also have to have some tools to navigate through. And having the faith and understanding that there is a higher cosmic order to everything, even when it looks like it's blowing up in your face, is part of it. There's a reason it's happening and it's serving you even when you feel uncomfortable. Emotional discomfort is just a marker. It's a transitional space. It's a guidepost. It's a signpost telling you, look here, figure out why you feel the way you feel. What is this trigger? And it's not just what's in front of you. There's usually a trigger of vulnerability, insecurity, instability, maybe a feeling of being powerless that's taking you back. These emotions are formed in childhood. They're triggering repressed memories, they're triggering repressed emotions, which is why it feels so huge and so tangible. And the more amplified your emotional response, usually the deeper the childhood wound. So pay attention to that. But when we know, like I found for myself, when I'm going through some sort of shift and transition and I don't know what's coming and it's a little unsettling, I know that I'm always divinely guided when I listen to my intuition. I know that there's always a cosmic order to everything in the way it's unfolding, the timing, everything. I think one of the hardest things I had to master was my desire to control the unfolding, what it looks like, the timing of it. I wanted it to be on my schedule. I wanted it to be easy. I wanted it to look this way. I used to be very much in fear and wanting to control every aspect of the unfolding, which is, it's impossible. We can't control people around us. We can't control situations around us. All we can control is how we emotionally respond, right? And that took, it just took so much mastery to get to a place where I could be like, okay, I'm still holding off on this, or this isn't quite ready to launch, or what I've learned to do, and it's taken years, is to really detach from the how and the when and the why. And I can have a framework, as I go forward, I can have a vision of how I want things to feel or look, or I can kind of flesh things out. Like for my business, for example, I can create some sort of framework, but it's loose. It's not really tied to getting certain things done within a certain amount of time or making X amount of calls, or I just work in a very intuitive way. So everything I do is kind of more free form, but there is a structure. There's an architecture in place, but it takes a little bit of faith to know that the timing and the opportunities and the people and whatever it is I'm needing to coalesce into the next phase of my life is it's there. It's there, it's waiting for you, it's waiting for me. And as you take the next step, you just take that baby step, focus on today, what's in front of you. Don't get ahead of yourself, don't judge yourself, don't judge the process. That's a hard one. It will pass and you will find yourself eventually on the other side of this transition, creating an incredible life for yourself. You have to let go of the weight if you want to soar and fly. You cannot fly with anchors tied to your ankles, which is what all these things that aren't aligned with you are. They're just dead weight holding you down and holding you back and holding you in frequencies that maybe you've outgrown and you're just ready to spread your wings and fly. So I just wanted to give you some perspective on that. I hope you guys can really receive what I'm saying and have the courage to let go, be honest about what's happening within your life and your emotional, mental, physical, spiritual body, light body. Honor yourselves, ask what you need, and then invite in what you need. It could be rest, it could be hydration, it could be a good book, it could be a good cry, call with a friend, find it, do it, and just keep loving yourselves through. We're all going to make it, even though it feels like at times you're not. And I love you all. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. Talk to you later. Bye.